Hello, my name is Manish Srivastava and I'm a second year MBA student and Center for Digital Studies MBA Fellow at the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College. I'm pleased to welcome Dan Albohn, Manager Strategic Business Development at Sony Electronics Digital Reading Business Division, who is joining us today as a part of the Brit Technology Impact Series. Earlier you mentioned about Sony's good relationship with publishers and also that it's important from the content perspective. So Sony had recently, last year, had a partnership with Smashwords and Author Solutions, which those sites allow authors self-publish their books. So my question is, how does that go with publishers? Because that seems to be getting into what publishers do.
That's a great question. I think I'd also like to reserve that question for our panel discussion this afternoon. If you're around for that one, we'll have Houghton Mifflin and Chelsea Green are joining this Dartmouth panel along with Sony and a company named Vuk. And they may have, the traditional publisher may have a slightly different take than I do. But I like to think of the Sony reading device at the hub. We can think of the airport analogy with spokes going out to multiple sites, to a Sony premium ebook store, as I mentioned, and periodicals we offer, so it's an e-newsstand now, to the public library that offers virtually digital collections that the user of the reader can harness, to self-published sites, to a Smashwords, to a Scribd, publisher direct. So I'm trying to expand in my response. I'll come back to self-publishing in a minute, but Sony is the hub with spokes going to multiple sites, and that would include other ebook commerce sites and publisher direct. Harlequin, who has just been doing very well in the romance arena and is one of the bigger branded publishers, has considerable activity direct from their website. And then there are other niche-y, although some of these arenas, as you know, as you may know, are not so niche-y. They get into some pretty spicy stuff, and those publishers are selling direct, and Sony readers are another destination for that kind of content. Typically PDF, ebook format, or possibly EPUB, more than likely EPUB. The reader also accommodates Microsoft Word documents that can be converted on the fly. And there's an interesting application in the publishing community. If we have time, we can touch on. But in general, ebooks and digital publishing enable for aspiring authors the opportunity. I forget the numbers, I've heard them before, but some tiny percentage of books are actually signed and accepted by the mainstream publishers. So what the author houses and the Scribds and the or Smashwords, what they bring to the party is another outlet. There are sites like Lulu. There are the library things of the world with communities of book sites, and all of these are starting to make a play. But ebooks in general afford a way for the average person or the aspiring author to get inexpensively his or her content available to a large base of appliances, if you will, and not just dedicated reading devices.
Okay. So there has been a lot of discussion on the standard format for the ebooks, and it seems to be settling on EPUB. But what, in your opinion, in future would be successful? Is EPUB, or is there a place for a strategy on which Amazon is batting with their proprietary format?
Well, clearly Amazon is doing its thing with the Mobi variation of the Mobi Pocket format and the digital rights that they use, and they drive their users to their website, largely wirelessly. But in general, the trade publishing industry has embraced EPUB. This was, again, a standard driven largely by the IDPF. They've been big in this arena. And so Sony, most recently, toward the end of last year, moved away from our proprietary platform to the EPUB format. We work with Adobe, one of the major technology players here, which is typically accepted as an industry standard digital rights scheme that's commonly used by many e-commerce vendors, e-book service providers. And I think what you're going to see, we're already seeing it with newspapers and magazines, experimentation with the EPUB format. So what started largely as a format for the more simple fiction and nonfiction trade published books, we're seeing a lot of dabbling with that in education, in newspaper and magazine. I can't predict how it will morph to accommodate what I know are much more complex layouts. If you compare a book of fiction with a textbook with a broadsheet newspaper, and they all have different requirements, and how do you render them on different screen sizes? EPUB being reflowable, but still you need the real estate on the screen to properly represent Marketing 101.